Hey, what's up? This is RTZiff here. The world of dedicated techwear retailers, and particularly the more affordable ones, as we've both talked about and discovered for ourselves, can be a little bit of a minefield. The particular danger here is the techwear dropshippers, those people who present essentially a fake storefront through which they sell very cheaply made goods at a pretty considerable markup. And then, not too much better than that, you have people who will purchase OEM clothing, basically pre-made stuff in bulk, attach their own brand name to that, and again, charge you a pretty hefty markup for the privilege. So instead of buying from those guys, we're going to take a look not just at some different ways to purchase that stuff if indeed you do want those exact pieces, but more importantly, some different retailers that are largely unknown to buyers in the US and Europe. These sites are primarily Taiwan-based retailers where there's a big subculture for this kind of style out there, and they house a bunch of up-and-coming brands which might be well known to Taiwan buyers, but internationally are not really seen anywhere. As a caveat, my experience with some of these retailers and brands on a personal level is fairly limited, so I'm not necessarily saying that everything I talk about in this video is like the best techwear shops and the ultimate techwear brands and that kind of thing. All I want to do is present some more options to people which otherwise you might have no idea about. So with that in mind, let's take a look at some of these sites and see what we can find. Gotta say, big thanks to Discord user Rex, who was super helpful in providing a lot of useful information for this video and is super knowledgeable about many of these brands and retailers that we're going to go through. Firstly, as I mentioned, if you're looking at dropshipped and OEM techwear gear, you may as well cut out the middleman and go straight to the source, those two being Taobao and AliExpress. The latter is maybe a little bit more user-friendly because some of those AliExpress retailers will ship internationally, pretty much anywhere, although as we found out a couple of months ago, you can end up with some absolute garbage from there. I would recommend searching for cargos, techwear cargos, streetwear cargos, things like that, and looking for retailers who have been around for some time, who have a lot of feedback, who have reviews on individual products, and preferably lots of photos as well. So I found this particular one, Veilance store, kind of looks like, judging by the pictures, you will at least get the thing that it looks like you're getting in the product pictures. Again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you go out and start buying all of this stuff. I think it's definitely worth buying fewer, better things and saving up for those more reputable brands if indeed you do have a genuine interest in techwear stuff, you want to get more involved with this kind of thing. It just doesn't sit right with me, the idea that like these kinds of techwear retailers are selling very, very cheap products marked up to a pretty significant degree just because they've got good SEO and they give their product some glossy presentation on Instagram or whatever. I would just much rather people be spending $15 on some not particularly good cargos versus like $80 on the same not particularly good cargos. So I want to put the information out there. On Taobao, you need to shop via an agent. Superbuy is the best known, but there are other ones here. That process is a little bit more involved. There's an extra kind of stage to it because it ships to the agent and then ships to you, although they can take photos of things that you've ordered, they can consolidate shipments as well, which will help minimize the chance of you ordering something and then something totally different shows up. You can also check out the seller of items and find out, do they have a physical address? Do they have an actual shop? Because again, that will help minimize the chance that you're buying something totally dodgy. An example of a legitimate Taobao store is this place Chaowanyi. It can be a little bit confusing to browse, you'll need an account to do so as well, but I'll put a link to that in the description nonetheless if you are interested. But enough about that stuff. I think there are far better brands and clothing than what's available on those sites. So we're going to take a look at some lesser known retailers that have a whole bunch of different brands. First of those being White Rock 2008. Now if you remember my last techwear brands video, I talked a little bit about Wisdom as one of those. This is the official web store for that brand. So they not only carry a whole bunch of Wisdom stuff, but a bunch of other both Taiwanese and global brands as well. You've got brands on there like Hoka One One and Snow Peak, which of course are pretty international and globally recognized. Don't be fooled by the prices, they're in new Taiwan dollars rather than US dollars, so this $4,000 pair of 4-dimension cargos, for example, works out at about 140 US dollars, which is a lot more reasonable. The most expensive stuff are items like this Wisdom jacket, which comes out at just over $300. Wisdom is definitely one of the more premium premium of the Taiwan techwear brands, but you could also look at guys like Ionism, where it's more like $140 for a jacket, and they've got a pair of pants that are down to like $70, which is far more reasonable. There is absolutely a theme on the kinds of stuff on offer here, but there's a little bit of variance between the different brands, both aesthetically and from a price point perspective. You've got people like Wisdom, I think, of particular note, because they've been around for quite a long time, to the extent that they actually helped inspire some of the more recent brands like Goopy Made, who are currently super hyped in Taiwan to the point that many of their things will sell out pretty much immediately. They use a signature mega oversized silhouette in a lot of their stuff, which combined with the relatively affordable prices has certainly given them an edge in Taiwan as to their popularity. It's certainly very unique. It's potentially quite interesting stuff as well if you can get hold of it, because it's just not seen that much internationally. Indonesian brand Orbit Gear are of course fairly well known by this point, and their sister brand Kin Supplies focus more on clothing as opposed to accessories. They've got a few potential options there. Like Orbit Gear, it seems that their things are made in relatively low quantities, but prices are also extremely low. You're looking at $59 for some of their pants. There's this interesting looking shell with a bunch of different colors there that's coming in at $129. In some cases, that's actually cheaper than Taobao dropshipper prices. I like that their pants in general have a relatively relaxed silhouette. That definitely helps differentiate them from the kind of mega tapered aggressive look that you'll often find with the kind of techwear brands at this kind of price point. They're made from cotton ripstop, which are not going to be super waterproof, but they're also not going to have the same breathability issues that you would associate with cheaper techwear pants. And when it comes to general purpose wearing and everyday comfort, I would definitely pick breathability over water resistance. I've not heard anything about an SS21 release, but if and when that comes, that will no doubt give people a bit more variety and options to pick from here, so that could be one worth keeping an eye out for the future. Another Taiwan-based retailer who describe themselves as a high-end minimal fashion store, Immense.tw. That's quite a bold name in the title there, but the good thing about these guys, not only can you change the currency out of new Taiwan dollars to make things far less confusing, but they've got a fairly interesting mix of brands too. You've got better known Taiwanese brands like 4Dimension and Gorilla Group, you've got lesser known ones like Indie Studio and Professor E, and then you've got some globally recognized brands like the Viridian, like Julius, and like Boris Bedan-Saberi. This stuff does trend more towards the expensive side, particularly when those international brands are involved, but it gives you a very nicely curated selection of this kind of technical darkwear type aesthetic. So if you're into these kinds of looks, you'll absolutely find things up your street here. I also find they have a very nicely curated and presented Instagram account as well, so that could be a nice place to go for a bit of inspiration. This will definitely be a good one for introducing people to some brands that might fit in with an aesthetic that they're familiar with, but are labels that you just otherwise would not hear about elsewhere. If you're a Gorilla Group fan, they've got a whole bunch of older season pieces at some modest discounts, but it's stuff that's not really available on the official site anymore. And I also saw that they stock Regards as well, which I've seen a few people wearing, which look super cool, very unique designs. So yeah, those are definitely worth checking out as well. On the cheaper end, you've also got Shellsole, who I did a video with a while ago now talking about Oclick, which is one of the brands that they stock. They've got a few others as well, like Kin Supplies that we spoke about before, like Riot Division as well. It's definitely the more affordable side of things. And they don't have a massive amount of stock, but you might find that they've got some different products to what is on the official sites of those brands. Oclick is definitely the most interesting brand to me in terms of the stuff that they stock. I've still got that jacket, and I felt like for the money it was pretty decent overall, and presented a little bit of a different look to what you would typically find at this price point. If you're thinking though you want to go even deeper into the Taiwan retailers and fashion, then I'm going to hit you with a final two options. First of those is Undergarden. It's another place to get brands like Liberators, Wisdom, Goopy Made as well. It feels like they've got a fairly curated selection of things. And it definitely feels like aesthetically they're more on the side of casual, oversized streetwear as opposed to the very sleek, technical, sort of urban utility type vibe. The other is Habitat Select. It's another place that stocks Goopy Made, and they've got a whole bunch of other Taiwanese brands and guys that frankly I have never even heard of. Now the selection here definitely is more in the kind of retro, Americana, Asian fusion workwear type stuff. It's definitely a different look to many of the other retailers here. So if you've got to this point and you've kind of thought, well, none of these retailers are really for me, then maybe you'll find something of interest here. But these kinds of brands and looks could definitely work into that more kind of gorp-core technical hiker style of techwear. Some hiking specific brands as well, like Antwon and Klatemusen, that you might be aware of already, are also stocked here, so that definitely gives you some kind of indication as to the direction that this site leans. Again, it's another one that has a very strong aesthetic. It feels like associated with it, so if any of this stuff is appealing to you, then that might be a retailer worth checking out. So a whole bunch of different retailers and potential aesthetics to take a look at there. I very much hope that at least some of these are new to you, you're not really familiar with, and you want to go take a look at. And if you've got any extra suggestions, then I would definitely add those to the comments, because it helps make this video as useful as possible for anyone that comes to check it out. And again, I just want to do my best to present the fullest possible picture of the sort of technical fashion space and all these different brands and retailers that you could select from, and that there are definitely more appropriate and better places out there than the first ones that will pop up when you're searching for cheap techwear cargos or whatever. Very much hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, if you saw a retailer that's new to you in some way, or a new brand that you thought was particularly cool, then definitely hit that like button. And if you've got a particular favorite of a particular piece or brand or retailer or whatever that stuck out for you, then definitely let everyone know down there in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will be back next week with another video. Shout out to Dan, who had already bought the Nike Pegasus Trail 2 GTX from the video last week. Hope you like them as much as I do. And shout out to David Atama. Hopefully this video was useful in some way, but we're definitely going to be doing some more content as well, which focuses more on these lesser known brands and people on the slightly more affordable end of the spectrum, but are still presenting some interesting and unique stuff that's a little bit better than the kind of drop-shipped brands. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. If you want to catch some more, there's going to be links going up at the top to some extra fun videos. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then definitely consider doing so, because we've got some more techwear content coming out every single week. We're definitely, as I say, going to be talking more about some of the more affordable brands and unknown stuff that you can get involved with for some cool, more techwear options.